So
Sure
just
thing.
when it gets down to close to 0.
And how is my sound quality? Am I okay?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
So I guess at this point, I would like to introduce our next speakers, Ross Moore and Tom Price. Ross is a senior lecturer with the Department of Mathematics and Statistics at Macquarie University, and he's been an important member of getting this online conference put together. Tom is a professor emeritus mathematics at the University of Akron. He's been retired for 15 years, and he now does consulting in LaTeX document preparation. Tom and his wife enjoy spending their winter months 750 miles, that's a little over 1,200 kilometers, south of Akron. And they will be presenting a case study on accessible research reports for the NOAA Northeast Fisheries review documents. So looking forward to it.
Okay. Okay, so great, thanks Jennifer. Okay, Tom, just bring yourself forward, say something to say hello to everyone.
Hello, everyone.
Alright, okay, so I'll go straight into what I was going to start with. There we go. I imagine it's close to dinner time for you, Tom. And anyway, so, okay, what are we looking at here? We're looking at a lovely, lovely picture. In fact, not just one of them, but let's also move on to another one. Oops. Okay, this one. Come on. I didn't want that selected. Okay, so a nice picture like this too, and I hope this, well, okay, so Acrobat's playing a little bit crazy with me at the moment, sorry about that. Let's try and bring that back. Okay, as you can see, there's all kinds of nice, interesting tagging being displayed here, and of course that's what we're going to be talking a lot about. But these pictures, okay, I tend to take a very wide view of what constitutes accessibility, much wider than what pretty much everyone else has spoken about this morning. Okay, we've had a lot of talks on accessibility. There's an echo, okay, that's probably due to me. Let's leave that. Okay, did that make it any difference, David? David Carlisle, has that helped? Okay, no, okay, so there's some muting. Okay, so I think that means Paolo and Tom, if you'd like to mute your audios, that would help. Okay. Okay, that should be just me now. Okay, okay, so what I was saying, I tend to take a pretty wide view of what constitutes accessibility. Example, suppose you were in your doctor's surgery and you saw this 80-page document sitting on the table there while you're in the waiting room, and you picked it up and it looked like it was some kind of a research report, and you saw that there's all these graphs and other kinds of scientific looking figures, and you flicked through it a bit more and you came across pictures like I've just been showing you. How much would that make you think, oh, there's something here that I would, I might want to look more into this, see what this is all about, all these lovely fish dinners and fish pieces in the seafood tray or whatever. How many of you would agree? Give me a thumbs up or something, or raise your hand if you think, oh, I'm more likely to read this document now than I might have otherwise been just looking at the scientific information in there. Okay, so in a sense you have made this document more accessible in the sense that you're more likely to want to look at it and read it. So that's one of the aspects of accessibility that no one's actually talked about yet. Okay, maybe not everyone believes that that's accessibility, but I think that the whole point in accessibility is that you're wanting to put information in the document that is going to make it more likely for more people to understand the whole point of what the document is all about. And so what is this document all about? Okay, let me zip to the front page. Okay, so this document is an NOAA research report, or a collection of research reports. Let's try and get the sizing of this a bit better. Okay. Okay. Blast. This is one of the problems with tagging, is that it's and the reader here, is that it tends to slow down the mouse actions. Okay, now let's try and get that to fit. How can I do that? I want to, without killing. Okay, so this is actually an NOAA research document. It's it contains reports on 5 different fisheries or fish species from the northeast of the US coast, and okay, and we'll get to look at a bit more at that later. Sorry, this isn't behaving the way I thought it would. Oh, come on. Okay, so maybe that'll hang on. Let's switch the sharing to something else, because I was going to do that anyway. Okay, so we've already had talks where we've talked about the requirements for US government agencies to produce accessible documents, and so let's just have a look at what the NOAA has to say about that kind of thing. We should be on. So this is actually the NOAA's website and their page on accessibility. Okay, and their websites have to conform to Section 508 of the Rehabilitation Act and so on, and that requires that all individuals with disabilities have access to and use of information and data comparable to that provided to individuals without. And then there's this extra clause at the end, unless an undue burden would be imposed on us. Okay. This is basically out of the law for the Section 508. And well, that law came into force about 5 years ago now. And yet they still have this, unless an undue burden would be imposed on us. Okay. That was put there because it was recognized at the time that some of the requirements, some of the statements, requirements under the Act did not necessarily agree with the state of technologies at the time, and they knew that it would be a while before some of the things could actually come into place. But now with things like the VPAT statement that we were looking at earlier today, basically that overrides all of this. It's now saying, hey, you have to do this now, right? So there's no hiding behind this undue burden would be imposed clause anymore, okay? And that's what makes it really, really important that we do accessibility in LaTeX correctly, because these are scientific organizations and their documents are often are best created using LaTeX. Okay, so we need to make it possible for them. Okay. Okay, so what are the requirements under this for this Section 508? Well, here's a checklist that you can find, and have a look through all of these things. Okay, and then each of these opens up to give him advice about how to do things, or how one could do things with an existing PDF document. Okay. Document properties. Is assistive technology access enabled? Is the language set? Do the tags follow the visual and all this? I just keep going, keep going. There's a whole stack of criteria here. Okay? And it comes at the end, well, often people hide behind this one, number 18, and provide an accessible version outside of the PDF. Provide something extra as well. Well, in LaTeX, we don't want to do that. We want to create the PDF ourselves, and we want all of these criteria to be satisfied. We want to build documents directly which satisfy everything that's there, and perhaps even a little bit more. Okay. Ulrika showed this particular site for ngPDF, which what it does is you can upload your PDF documents, and it does two things. It runs checkers, validation checkers first, and we'll see a bit more of that later, and then it creates an HTML page out of your PDF document, and okay, it's fine. In fact, this is pretty good. It's a free site. You can do all of that. In fact, you can even, well, the accessibility checker, sorry, the validation software behind it is actually Vera PDF, which is an open source project, and so that's free. But I can tell you now that that won't do everything for you. Okay. What one finds because of this requirement on all of the US government agencies is that you have people that set themselves up like this, and their job is to take your PDFs and to do something with it. They call this technique remediation. Okay, and here's a claim here that currently available software is not capable of automatically taking PDF files for Section 508 certification. Well, that's the thing that we're trying to change, right? It's well, and we'll see that the statement isn't quite as blanketly true as they're stating here. And of course, this is meant to be advertising. They're looking for work to do some of this for you. Okay. And of course, that's the kind of thing that the government agencies have been doing for the last few years, that they have been hiring people to do remediation or outsourcing it to companies such as this one. Okay, but then you get statements like this. Ugly truth. PDF accessibility services don't actually meet the 508 document compliance requirements. And this takes a little while to read through. And here's the kind of thing. The longer and more complex your document, the less likely it meets all of the 508 PDF accessibility requirements. Okay. You can read through what this guy is saying, and alright, you search for Google and you hire one for a few thousands of dollars. But here's the catch. They don't actually do full remediation. Okay. And a lot of the problem comes with tables, tagging the header cells correctly in tables, and so on. Okay, and you know, for the you can see statements of this kind, and you can spend a lot of money, and you don't actually get what it is that you really want. Okay, you thought you were in the clear because you paid a service $1,000, but they only made it more accessible, but they didn't make it fully accessible according to the standards. Okay. So that's kind of the reality. Now let's go back to the document itself that we started with and see if I can get it to behave properly. There we go. Okay, so I can't see that well. Now I've got too many windows open. Let's see. Let's go to the right window. Acrobat Pro, what's going on? Oh, okay, it's in that tool again. It's in that wrong tool. Okay, there we go. Okay, so here's our document. It's not, let's see if I can fit it to the screen a bit better. That's our front page. Okay, you can see that with an object, with an image, you should have extra descriptive text, which can be picked up by screen reading software. Okay, like this. And well, you can see on the side here that it's very richly tagged with all kinds of custom tagging. Okay, tables of contents, lists of figures, glossaries. We'll get back to glossaries later. Tom will have a lot to say on glossaries. Okay, section headings. There was a question earlier about section headings and whatever. Okay, Tag PDF doesn't manage them yet, but I've certainly been doing this for a few years, and I have my own coding which handles a lot of this stuff. Okay, but the important thing is, does this satisfy the standards? Okay, so one comes to pick up this utility. The very first thing you should do is check that in fact the syntax is correct, and that the syntax in this document is actually correct. Okay, and so that takes a few seconds, and it's taking a little bit longer than normal, but here we go. No problems found. Here's our 80-page document. No problems found. Okay, we run down to check for PDF UA compliance, and this runs a whole bunch of other checks, about of the order of 30 to 40 other checks, and again, no problems found. Okay, Tom is going to show you what happens when you run another set of checks, and again, basically no problems found. I want to also use the same document with that Vera PDF that I told you about that sits behind. Don't say it's not up. That's a nuisance. Okay, it's a Java program, and it seems to have, I think I did a restart. Okay, in which case I will just show you I'll see if I can get the value, the results from it out of history. Okay, I've got it somewhere else. I can find it somewhere else. Open file, and screenshots here. Okay. Okay, so I'm not going to be able to find. Oh no, it should be in here. It should be in here. Images. Okay, so I can't show you. Okay, I'll tell you what it shows though. If you run it, okay, I've got to set up Java to do that. Well, I have to launch Java to do that and then show it. But if you do it, it tells you that it runs 90 different tests, 90 different test rules that it looks at, and that in this document there are it runs 343,000 tests. Okay, 343,000 individual tests of aspects of the document structure. Now, there's absolutely no way that any person in a remediation service can possibly do work of that kind to that level. Okay, you need software tools in order to do it, and the LaTeX document does it. And for this particular document, one gets that all of those tests are passed. There's not a problem. Okay, what it's doing is checking validity for the PDF UA standard. Okay, and the document passes all those tests. Okay. I think I'll hand over to Tom in a minute, but before that I want to say that, okay, just passing those 343,000 individual tests is still not enough to say that your document is truly accessible. Okay, and we've seen that this one passed Acrobat Pro's test for the validity of the PDF itself as a PDF document. Just a week or two ago, I had an earlier version of this document in which I was trying to simplify the tagging a little bit and hadn't quite done it properly. The resulting document passed everything that Vera PDF wanted, but it didn't pass one of the Acrobat pre-flight tests. It failed something there because I had left some tagging in which shouldn't have been there, and so the tagging got unbalanced. Okay, so you can't just say, well, okay, this is valid for PDF UA, but it's actually a broken PDF. That's not good enough. Okay, so even though Vera PDF is one of the best bits of software for verifying PDF UA conformance, it's not enough by itself. And then even after having fixed that up with and got the validation for PDF itself correct, and so all the validators now said this is a good document, that's still not enough for full compliance. Okay, and so we'll come back and talk about that afterwards. But first of all, now I want to hand over to Tom and let Tom have a go and show us a bit about some structures in this document from his point of view. Okay, so Tom, if you're, well, I'll stop the share here, and I'll hand over to you. Okay.
Thank you, Ross. I just want to talk a little bit about how we use these. This work we had done quite a bit. In fact, we could have been pretty much finished if we wanted to. We had done quite a bit of work on CRDs already. But what we noticed is that there are many acronyms, and we call them acronyms, in the CRD documents. These are abbreviations and other types of glossary items. And we noticed that they were being read all kinds of ways. Normally, the machine would try to make a word out of an acronym. And so Ross took it upon himself to basically develop a way to read an acronym letter by letter. And you'll see that we've actually developed quite a bit more than that. And so you've met both of us. The person I'm working with at NOAA is Daniel Henning. I'm actually reporting to him, I would say, and he uses R markup to mark up a CRD. Many authors are involved in these things, and so that's a problem. And you can see that he really likes this idea of using acronyms. We had him mark up this article that you're now reading once, and he made some mistakes, and he wanted to do it again. We let him do it again, and he had pretty much learned how to do everything. So this is not very difficult once you get the hang of it. I'd also like to thank Nicola Talbot, because she's the one that wrote the Glossaries Extra package. I use a lot of her work, and I've always appreciated them. And in fact, I've put glossaries in almost every document that I have, that I do now, and I always use her work. This is the page that the accessibility test page, and you'll notice that there are no errors except for those over which you have no control when you build a document. That you can't, for example, have the LaTeX check the reading order. The reading order is determined by the authors. So this thing was generated, this document was generated strictly by LaTeX using Ross's styles, and there was no post-processing. At least there was none to my knowledge. I wanted to begin by just giving you a quick example of what we call a special algorithm. Now, a special algorithm here, we wrote these to handle what are mathematical expressions, uncommon mathematical expressions, because we found out that the variety of authors that wrote the various parts of these things, of this document, would try to use his or her own technique for writing a particular mathematical expression, in this case, what we call SSBMSYPR. And that has a meaning. That they establish that meaning. I use this one first because this is a mathematical example, and the mathematical acronyms have two mathematical arguments. The third one is used, for example, in equations and so on, because then it doesn't generate a glossary element. Now, what I would like to do is to show you how these are read with the reader, Adobe Reader. First, let me just bring your attention over here to the left, and you'll see this is a glossaries list. I did this intentionally. These documents have a lot of glossary items, and we need 4 and sometimes maybe 5 different kinds. And if I move back over here, you'll see that the little figure tag pops up. I'm going to read this page because it's short, but in particular, I want you to take notice of how it reads these mathematical quantities down here.
So Tom, are you meant to be sharing the PDF?
It should be on there. Yes, is it not on there?
No, you've got your presentation.
Do I really? Oh, that really?
Yes.
Is it there now?
Not yet.
Tom, you might need to reshare your screen and select that window with the PDF.
Okay, this if it's full screen mode, it should actually switch back and forth, but I'll try that because this isn't working, and you were correct before. Is it sharing now?
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
That's disappointing. Usually I flip right back and forth. Okay, so now you can see all of the glossary elements here, 4 different types in this case. And I'm going to read this page because it's a short page, and I want you to please pay particular attention to the way it reads these mathematical quantities down here. So let me go up, and the first thing it will read, by the way, is this pop-up you see, and then it'll read the caption. So can you hear that?
No, you'll have to put a microphone near it.
Okay. You can't hear that, right?
No, can't hear anything there.
See, when I had to log back on, I think it turned off the computer audio, and probably I could reset that. I really apologize for that because we had this thing already really ready. So now, if I do this, are you back to my slideshow now, or is it still showing the other thing?
Yeah, it's back to the slideshow now.
Okay, that's the way it should go.
We didn't get to hear any of that reading.
Yeah, I know, right. I'm going to try to work on this while I talk.
Yeah, something
Okay.
about sharing sound.
Yeah, sharing sound. There
someone's-
you have to click a little button when you log on. And I think when we got into that problem without the computer, I didn't click that button when we tried to get my machine working correctly. Okay.
Okay.
This when turn it back over to you, maybe I'll get that turned on, Ross, and we can try it.
Yeah. Okay.
This is an image of the way this thing works. We have to have the macros file. These are macros that we actually write for packages that use Ross's styles. And now all the acronyms are really written in the preamble of the document. We want to put those, since we write those for the client, we want to put these in a special file. So basically, the build process pulls all this stuff together and builds a main PDF document that is fully accessible. As far as I know, we don't have any problems except for some that come up in new situations. Now, this is another command. This is a basic make acronym command. And this first argument is a key, which is used for sorting. The second is the actual command that a client enters when he or she wants to access this acronym. This is the visible content. This is what is printed. This is what is read. And we can do a lot of different things here. These are read letter by letter because of these spaces. You can combine words with letters in here. You can pretty much make the machine read any way you want. And this command then is the alt text. And then in some cases, you need to have this. Notice that this is using another acronym. So this acronym is using another acronym in it, and that can cause problems for some situations. And so you want to have an alternate form of the alternate text. Most of the time, this is left empty, but occasionally you do need plain text for the expanded meaning. And pretty much this is all handled. Switching this alternate text over is all handled by this. I don't want the 5 commands here, the simple 5 commands that you see here, to in any way hide the complexity of this result. This code that this stuff runs right here, especially this one, is quite complicated. So complicated I don't understand it. These are other acronyms. We have a variable acronym which takes this alternate argument, this is a locale. This is an area, Cape Cod to the Gulf of Maine, CCGM, red CCGM. Notice this is red cod GB, for example. These are fish acronyms. We have pretty much all of these at our disposal. Now, I think I'll turn it back to you, and I'm going to try to repair that. So give me a chance to see if I can get this stuff to read at the end, Ross. You know, maybe before I give up, let me just go ahead and thank everybody here, Noah and the committee, and Ross. I appreciate everything you've done. So Ross, if you will go ahead and finish your talk, I'll try to get mine to work.
Yeah. Okay, so let us know and we'll get back to you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So I want to come back and show a little bit more about the acronyms. And I'm going to show that to you in different ways. Okay, so let's go to, well, first of all, let's go, I'll show you in Acrobat first as to how the acronyms work. Okay, so here the acronyms are each acronym, so even, well, okay, so here's an SSB. Click on it, it's a hyperlink, takes you to the glossary page with the top left corner being exactly where you were, so you can go back again. Okay, this one is not actually an acronym, it's actually just a hyperlink, and it's taking us to one of these pictures, but it depends on how you've got your page view set up. So this fish providor picture happens to be on, just sort of filling out a page here where we have pictures of all the little fish in the 5 different fish stocks that we've got that are being examined in this picture, in this document. Okay. This is just using ordinary hyperlinks the way you can do them in HyperF. Okay, but we do them for all of those acronyms. Okay, so let's do that. Okay, that's using Acrobat, and well, it should work in any PDF viewer. Okay, except on a Macintosh, you've actually got there's a different style. They're handled in a different way. So I can go to that same page, pretty much the same page, and under a Macintosh, you actually get a little pop-up picture for each of these things. Okay, so you don't actually have to click on it and go to where the acronym is. Right? The picture will just pop up and it will show you what you want. Okay, so this is very much increasing the accessibility of this document for fully sighted people, fully sighted readers. Okay, whereas if you can't see the pictures, so if you are visually impaired, then you click on it to go to the right place for the hyperlink, just as you would do in Acrobat. Okay, so in Adobe software. So Mac software has this ability to show the pictures. Adobe software, you have to use the hyperlink. But in Mac software, you can also use the hyperlink if you wish. Okay. Oh, great. Okay, so that's the kind of thing that we use the acronyms for. And okay, so here we're using them for mathematical variables or statistical variables. Okay, and that seems to be pretty important. I have a story of a few weeks ago, well, it must be almost 2 months ago now, before we went into lockdown. I was walking across the university campus and came across a colleague from a different department, and they asked, "Oh, how are you going? What kind of things are you doing? Are you still working in LaTeX?" And I said, "Yes, I did. Yes, it is." And there were 2 of them, and one of them said to me, "Oh, okay, one of the things I'd like to be able to do is to not have to go flicking back through the pages to find out the definition of a variable." Well, that's exactly what this is. You don't have to go back through the pages to find out what the variable means, or right? The acronym is doing exactly that for you. Okay. So, okay, so that's that. And now I made a statement earlier that oh, I couldn't. No, I didn't. Right, I should have got Java going up, shouldn't I? Okay, so well, let's skip that bit. What do I want to do next? Yes, okay. So I said it takes more than just satisfying PDF UA to have an accessible document. Okay, and what I meant by that is something like, okay, so if we go back to Acrobat, let's go back to Acrobat. Acrobat allows you to export a document in multiple different formats. Okay, you could do a Word document, you could do Excel spreadsheets, PowerPoint presentations, HTML web pages. Okay, with a fully tagged document like this, the HTML web pages are actually pretty good. And I tried it out yesterday with this document, and it did a better job than what NGPDF did. So the website that I showed you earlier. Okay. Obviously PostScript and encapsulated PostScript, but these bottom 3 are actually the ones that are most useful for visually impaired people. and Assistive Technology. Okay, in particular exporting to text accessible. Okay, the text that one gets here, I mean I can do it and just, it'll take a little while. The text that one gets here is exactly the text that one would get, or that one would hear, if you tried to use that screen reader that that Tom tried, and we just didn't. He didn't have it hooked up, or we didn't have it hooked up so that you could hear it all. So here so rather than hearing it, I'm going to show you what the text is. Okay. So here's the extracted text from this 80-page document. Let's go right up to the, might as well go right up to the top. Okay, and okay, we include extra metadata, if you like. Start of the front matter block, start of the cover page. We got the logo, we read that, we read the information that was in that pop-up when I showed you the logo. Okay, the type of document is a Northeast Fisheries Science Centre reference document. CID number, well, we don't actually have the CID number yet. This is really still in the preprint stage. We don't have the official number yet. The title, the authors, the date, and so on. And the extracted text is actually looking pretty nice. Okay, and even here, this is our latest edition, that even the table of contents is now listed line by line, instead of having all the lines running next to each other and becoming totally unreadable. Okay, lists of tables, the list of figures, all of this stuff is now properly readable and accessible to somebody, either with a screen reader or perhaps even with a braille reader as well. Okay, this is now all formatting reasonably nicely. I mean, we deliberately put in some extra text in order to say what is going on here. It's a glossary item. It's going to be pronounced as ASAP, or read out as ASAP, but it stands for Age Structured Assessment Program, and it's software developed, whatever. Okay, and you can read that through. So this is the quality of text that's being sent to Assistive Technology, and you can satisfy, well, okay, if we have a compare that to an earlier version, then you'll see that there's a big difference. Okay, so it should be down here, fully tagged.txt. Yeah, okay. Okay, so it says 6th of August, but it's actually taken from a document, a PDF that hasn't changed since about the 15th of July. Okay, and you can see how things are, well, some of it's set out nicely. This is a bit of a mess. That's what the table of contents was kind of looking like. Okay, everything, this is all just, a lot of those blocks are just single lines. Okay, so you can see that that's the kind of stuff that you would get if you didn't make special, if you hadn't programmed in special effort to break this all up into lines. Okay, if you just take the text out of the PDF document, it just comes like this. Tech doesn't put in line breaks, it doesn't put in space characters. Well, okay, PDF tech can be told to put in space characters, and of course that's what we do, but you wouldn't normally put in line breaks. So in the last couple of weeks, we've figured out the way to specifically put in line breaks and give us the much neater presentation that I showed you first. Okay, so that's what it now looks like. Also here you'll find that there's some duplications, so we've tracked down what was causing those duplications and removed it, and so we now have a much better text output. Okay, it's not perfect. There's still going to be some places like here, right? We're missing a line break here. Okay, It's because the glossary listing has finished, and then it's picking up text from the image that came below it, and so I need to do a little bit more work to find out the best way to put in extra line breaks at that point, or extra tag, audio tagging, if you like, in order to make this, to get rid of this overlap, which really is one of the things that makes this less accessible. Okay, if you've only got a few things like this, you can probably say, okay, there'll be a few little glitches, but basically it's really accessible. If you have no such line breaks where everything runs into itself, you really can't say that this is an accessible document. You're not doing any visually impaired person any good by providing this kind of text for them. Okay, so that's what I meant when I said that you need to do a lot. Well, okay, the document that produces this was fully validating for PDF UA. And it was, okay, this particular one actually showed some errors under when you do it with Vera PDF, but even once you fix those errors, it's fully validating, yet it still has this kind of problem with extracting the text from it. Okay, and you can see here, right, these ones, there should be spaces between all of these fish names. Right? You can't give this to somebody to say, hey, look, this is meant to be an accessible document when you've got stuff like this in it. Okay. So the current version now doesn't have that. It just has the occasional thing like this one here. Okay. I think that's probably getting quite close to finishing time, isn't it? So how are you going there, Tom? Have you got anything
well,
that you want to show us?
We can try. I did join again, but you have to let me share screen, and if it doesn't work,
sure,
I'll show you something.
Screen. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, you should see that graph again. Oops, wait a minute. Sorry. Okay, you should see that graph again.
Yeah.
Okay, and I'll try reading this.
Spawning stock biomass trends over time for Atlantic surf clam. Figure 20. Trends in spawning stock biomass of Atlantic surf clam between 1982 and 2019 from the current, solid line, and previous, dashed line, assessment and the corresponding SSB threshold, $\_T_12\_SSBMSYPR$. Horizontal dashed line, as well as SSB target, SSB MSY proxy, horizontal dotted line, based on the 2020 assessment. Units of SSB are the ratio of annual biomass to the biomass threshold, SSB over SSB threshold. The approximate 90% log normal confidence intervals are shown. End of float block.
Okay, so could you hear that?
Yeah, that came through well. That was good.
Okay, now just very quickly then, and what Ross, the Apple machines will give you a pop-up here that is very nice. This navigates to the to this particular acronym in the list. And I did want to just read this one before we quit, but I changed the page number down here on my copy to be like instead of 9, 11, 9-11. Of course, that should read differently, and you'll hear that when we read this.
Glossary item, SSB MSY proxy, proxy value for spawning stock biomass estimation for maximum sustainable yield, occurs on page 5 and 7 and 9 up to 11 and 30 and 35 and 37 and 43 and 46 and 52 and 60.
Okay, and the way they pronounce it, we don't have anything to do with the way they pronounce the word "and." I don't believe so. That's just the reader. Okay, thank you very much, Ross.
Okay, I think we should draw this to a close.
Okay.
So let's, okay, so if you can undo the share, and we will, well, I suppose maybe just a couple of seconds for questions if anyone wants to ask a question, or else we'll move on to the next talk. So let's see, is there any raised hands, any questions?
Alan has a question that he's posted to you in the chat, and he says, do you need hints to improve the reader's pronunciation of acronyms that are spoken as words instead of individual letters?
Yes. Okay, so the answer to that is absolutely. That's exactly what we were doing with those acronyms. We were putting them in as individual letters rather than as words. That's why we spaced them out. So there was N space, O space, A space, A space, and so on. Okay, we may not have got all of them exactly right. As in Tom's example there was a piece where it was actually reading out the LaTeX source of the mathematics rather than the acronym. But in other cases, if the mathematics is just the acronym itself, that's the only thing in there, then we make it read out the letters of the acronym. Okay, it's not just acronyms, of course, it's also mathematical variables and things. So yeah, we've put a fair bit of work into trying to do that right. I could show you how that's done in the PDF, but I think we're running short of time. If you want to speak to us afterwards, certainly I can show you how that happens. Okay, is that okay, Alan?